The city of Letheria glowed like a living jewel under its twin moons. Towers of glass and crystal rose high into the sky, humming softly with the energy that powered them. Streets were filled with aliens of all shapes and colors, moving gracefully across floating platforms or gliding along magnetic walkways. The city pulsed with life, a harmony of technology and art. At the very center of this city sat the Grand Palace, a vast structure carved from luminous stone, the home of Queen Zira and her people. Queen Zira was a figure of calm strength. Her long silver-tinged robes shimmered as she moved through the palace halls, greeting advisors and citizens alike. Her eyes, deep blue like the planet's rivers, reflected a wisdom far beyond her years. She ruled with care and fairness, always listening to the needs of her people. Yet, her most treasured responsibility was not the throne or her subjects. It was her daughter, Princess Lyra. Lyra was a lively child, full of curiosity and energy. Her skin glowed faintly in the dark, a trait of her species, and her hair floated slightly as though it were weightless. She loved exploring, asking questions, and discovering things that most adults overlooked. Even in the Grand Palace, she found secret corridors and hidden gardens where she could play alone. Today, however, her curiosity would lead her farther than ever before. The city was alive with celebration. A festival had been declared to honor the planet's twin moons, and streets were decorated with streams of light that twisted like ribbons in the air. The aroma of exotic foods filled the air, and music vibrated through the city in waves, making the ground beneath the palace hum softly. Lyra slipped out of her mother's chambers just as the festival began. She ducked behind floating carts and danced past tall aliens, her eyes wide with excitement. "I want to see everything," she whispered to herself. She wandered toward a sector of the city that was marked as restricted, a place where ordinary citizens were rarely allowed. The Sao. Walls were high and strange machines hummed along the pathways. Lyra's eyes sparkled with curiosity. "Maybe I can see something no one else can," she thought, stepping closer. Unseen by Lyra, a group of shadowy figures watched her from the alleyways. They were not citizens of Letheria. Their skin was rough and dark, their eyes glinting with greed. These were space raiders, infamous across several star systems for kidnapping valuable beings and selling them to the highest bidder. When they saw Lyra, their hearts sank with delight. A royal child would fetch a price beyond their imagination. Before Lyra could realize the danger, the raiders moved swiftly. One of them extended a net that shimmered with a faint energy field. In a flash, Lyra was trapped. She screamed, but her voice was swallowed by the festival's music. The raiders lifted her into the air, heading toward their hovering ship that waited just above the rooftops. Back in the palace, Zira noticed her daughter's absence almost immediately. "Lyra!" she called, her voice carrying both authority and fear. Advisors rushed to inform her that the child had left the festival area. The queen's heart pounded. She was trained for diplomacy, for strategy, for negotiation, but she was not prepared for her daughter to vanish in an instant. The palace security mobilized, sending patrols into the city. Drones lifted off, scanning the streets with precise sensors while guards raced across the walkways. Yet Lyra was gone. The raiders had moved with precision, avoiding detection with careful planning and speed. Within minutes, they were gone, disappearing into the night sky aboard their ship. Zira's mind raced. She had faced threats to her people before, but never like this. Never had anyone dared to strike so boldly at her own family. She stood at the balcony of the palace, looking at the dark stars where her daughter had been taken. A cold determination filled her chest. "I will get her back," she whispered, "no matter what it takes." Meanwhile, Lyra's fear slowly began to mix with wonder. She had never been outside Letheria's atmosphere, and the sight of the stars stretching endlessly around her took her breath away. Yet, the excitement was overshadowed by the raiders' presence. They were rough and unkind, speaking in harsh tones she could barely understand. One of them, a tall figure with jagged armor, approached her. "Quiet, little one. You will be fine, as long as you obey." Lyra's heart raced. She wanted to cry, but she also remembered the lessons her mother had taught her. "Stay calm, think," she whispered to herself. She began observing the raiders, noting their movements and patterns. Even as a child, she had a sharp mind, quick to notice what others missed. Perhaps, she thought, she could find a way to escape. Back on Lytheria, Queen Zyra convened a council of her advisors. Holographic screens displayed the city, its streets, now quiet without her daughter. "We have failed to protect her," she said, her voice steady despite the storm inside. "We cannot wait. We must find her. We must bring her home." Advisors offered various suggestions: negotiate with the raiders, track them through star channels, or seek help from distant allies. Zyra listened carefully, weighing every option. Her instincts told her that diplomacy alone would not save Lyra. This time. The raiders were ruthless, motivated by greed, not reason. They would not release her without force or cunning. As the night deepened, the Queen's focus sharpened. She began sending messages to trusted contacts across nearby systems, seeking anyone who might have the skill, courage, or ingenuity to retrieve her daughter. She knew her people were strong, but she also knew that sometimes even the strongest need help from those who think differently, who act unpredictably. On the raider ship, Lyra stayed silent, watching every detail. The walls were cold metal, with blinking lights and strange symbols. She memorized everything: the corridors, the guards' routines, the sound of the engines. "If anyone comes for me, I will need this knowledge," she thought. She did not cry. Instead, she held on to a quiet hope that someone would come, that someone brave enough, clever enough would reach her before it was too late. Somewhere in the galaxy, that someone was already receiving the call. Far from Lytheria, on a small ship patrolling the outer rim, Captain Elias Ward detected the distress signal. A message, simple but urgent, blinked on his console. "Royal child abducted. Immediate rescue required. Lytheria." Elias studied the coordinates, then looked out at the stars stretching endlessly before him. He had seen danger before, faced threats that most humans could not imagine. But this was different. A child, innocent and in peril. A queen, in distress. He could feel the weight of the galaxy pressing on his shoulders, yet something inside him stirred. The human instinct to act, to protect, to do what was right. He turned to his crew, a small team of skilled humans who had worked with him for years. "We have a mission," he said, his voice calm but firm. "A child needs help. We are going to get her back, no excuses, no delays." The crew nodded, understanding the gravity of the task. Humans were often underestimated by other species. They lacked the advanced technology of some civilizations, the precision of others, but what they had was determination, courage, and adaptability. And sometimes that was enough to change the course of events. Back on the raider ship, Lyra pressed her hand against the cold metal of the walls. She whispered softly to herself, as if speaking to the stars themselves. "Please, someone come. Please help me." And somewhere among the stars, a human captain and his crew were already moving toward her. They did not know the full danger that awaited them. They did not know the cunning of the raiders or the perils of the journey. But they did know one thing clearly: a child needed saving. Far from Lytheria, beyond the outer rim of the star systems, a small human ship cut silently through the blackness of space. Its hull was worn from years of travel, patched in places with mismatched metal, yet it moved with purpose. On board, Captain Elias Ward studied the blinking alert on his console. The message from Lytheria still glowed. "Royal child abducted. Immediate rescue required, Lytheria." Elias leaned back in his chair, his dark eyes reflecting the starlight streaming through the cockpit. He had faced dangers before: pirates, rogue mercenaries, and hostile alien systems. But something about this mission felt different. This was not a political conflict or a battle for resources. This was a child, innocent and helpless, trapped far from home. His human instinct told him he could not ignore it. "Set a course for Lytheria. Elias said to his crew, his voice steady. "And make it fast. Someone is counting on us." The crew, 3 humans who had served under Elias for years, nodded without hesitation. There was Mara, a pilot whose hands were as steady as a surgeon's; Jonas, an engineer capable of repairing almost anything with scraps; and Rena, a communications expert who could intercept signals from almost any frequency. Together they were small but capable, a team who relied on human ingenuity rather than raw technology. As the ship jumped into hyperspace, Elias briefed his team. "We are dealing with raiders," he said. "Fast, ruthless, and unpredictable. They've taken a royal child. That means we cannot expect mercy or negotiation. Our job is to find her and bring her back. Keep your eyes open. Think fast. Act faster." The crew listened carefully, understanding the gravity of their mission. Elias paused, looking out at the stars streaking past. "Humans are not the strongest or the most advanced," he said quietly. "But we are clever, adaptable, and brave. That is why we succeed where others fail." Meanwhile, in a distant sector, Lyra remained on the raider ship, observing everything around her. She had learned quickly that fear would do nothing to help her survive. Instead, she studied the guards' movements, memorized the layout of the ship, and counted the pauses in their patrols. Her mind, sharp and quick, began to formulate a plan. If someone came for her, she would need every piece of information she had gathered. The raiders, confident in their technological advantage, did not expect interference. Their ship was equipped with cloaking devices and energy shields that made it nearly invisible to outsiders. Their communication systems were encrypted, and their weapons were advanced enough to deter almost any pursuer. Yet none of this accounted for the human element, the courage, unpredictability, and ingenuity of a determined person. Elias's ship emerged from hyperspace near Letheria's system. The twin moons hung in the sky like watchful eyes, their glow reflecting off the oceans and forests below. He scanned the area, analyzing the data sent by Letheria's alert system. The raider ship had left traces, but they were faint. "They know what they are doing," Elias said, "but we can use their overconfidence against them." The crew prepared for action. Mara adjusted the ship's engines, increasing speed while maintaining silent operation. Jonas checked the weapons and systems, making sure every function worked perfectly. Rena tapped into alien communication channels, attempting to locate any signal from Lyra. Hours passed as they followed faint energy trails left by the raiders. Elias studied them carefully, predicting the enemy's path. He knew that brute force alone would not work. The raiders were too many, too well armed, and too clever to face directly. They would need strategy and surprise. Finally, the human ship approached the derelict asteroid where the raiders had taken Lyra. The fortress hung in space like a dark shadow, its metal walls scarred from years of battle. Turrets rotated slowly, scanning for threats while small ships patrolled the perimeter. It was a dangerous place, but Elias had faced worse. He turned to his crew. "This is it," he said. "We do this smart. No heroics that get us killed. Mara, you will pilot us close to the entrance under the radar. Jonas, be ready to disable their shields. Rena, monitor communications. The moment we find Lyra, we move. Understood?" "Yes, Captain," they replied in unison. The ship descended toward the asteroid fortress. Mara skillfully maneuvered through the patrols, dodging detection. The human ship was small and nimble, capable of slipping past larger, slower vessels. Elias held his breath, trusting Mara's skill and their combined plan. Inside the fortress, Lyra's eyes widened as she noticed strange lights outside. Someone was approaching. She held her breath, praying that it was help. Her heart pounded as she whispered to herself, "Please be someone who will save me." Elias's plan was simple but daring. Instead of attacking directly, they would create a diversion. Jonas deployed small magnetic drones that emitted interference signals, temporarily disabling the raiders' shields. Rena sent fake signals across the ship's communication channels, confusing the raiders about their true location. The raiders reacted with confusion, shouting orders in their harsh language. "What is happening?" one demanded. "Find the intruders." Meanwhile, Elias guided a small landing pod toward the interior of the fortress. He was careful, precise, and silent. The pod touched down near the section where Lyra was held, hidden behind crates and energy barriers. Elias disembarked, moving swiftly but quietly. Lyra watched from the shadows as a figure emerged. At first she hesitated, unsure if this was another captor. Then she saw his face, a human, calm, determined, and clearly here to help. Something inside her shifted. She knew this was the one who could save her. Elias spotted Lyra almost immediately. "There you are," he whispered softly. "I'm here to take you home. Can you move quietly with me?" Lyra nodded, fear still in her eyes but trust forming, quickly. She followed him, staying low and silent. Elias led her through narrow corridors, avoiding patrols and traps. He explained in a quiet voice, "We have to be careful. One wrong move and we could be caught. Stick with me." The humans. Calm confidence gave Lyra courage. She realized that humans, though smaller and weaker than many aliens, had something powerful. Courage, quick thinking, and a willingness to risk themselves for others. This human had come across the galaxy just to save her. Outside, the raiders continued to search in confusion, unable to understand what had disabled their systems and distracted their patrols. They were skilled and ruthless, but they had underestimated the humans' ingenuity. Elias and Lyra reached a small shuttle hidden in a maintenance bay. "This will take us out," he said, helping her inside. Lyra felt a mix of fear and relief as the shuttle lifted off, slipping past the raider ship's defenses. Mara guided the human ship from outside, coordinating perfectly with Elias. The raiders scrambled, firing weapons, but Elias anticipated their moves. Using clever maneuvers, he dodged the attacks and increased distance. Lyra held on tightly, her eyes wide as she watched the chaos outside. "You're amazing," she whispered. Elias smiled briefly. "Humans have their ways," he said, "and sometimes those ways are enough." As they entered space, leaving the asteroid fortress behind, Lyra finally felt a sense of safety. She looked at Elias with admiration and gratitude. "Thank you," she said softly. Elias nodded. "We're not out of danger yet, but we will get you home. That's a promise." Meanwhile, far away on Letheria, Queen Zira waited anxiously. She could not know yet who had taken her daughter or how, but a small message from her scouts indicated movement in the outer rim, movement that could change everything. In the cold vastness of space, a human ship carried hope, courage, and determination. One human, willing to risk everything for a war child he had never met, was already changing the course of events, and Lyra, once frightened and alone, was beginning to understand something profound. Sometimes the most unlikely heroes come from the most unexpected places. The twin moons of Letheria shone far in the distance, and the city below waited, unaware that a human's bravery had already begun to write a new chapter in its history. The raider fortress loomed like a dark, jagged mountain in space. Its walls were thick and scarred from countless battles, and its turrets scanned the void for intruders. Inside, alarms echoed faintly, red lights flashing as the raiders scrambled to understand the sudden interference. They had never faced humans like this, small, clever, and unpredictable. Captain Elias Ward crouched in the maintenance corridor, guiding Princess Lyra carefully behind him. She moved silently, trying to mirror his calm. Her heart still raced, but her fear was tempered by trust. Elias had shown her something remarkable. Even when surrounded by danger, thinking clearly and acting bravely could make a difference. "Stay close," Elias whispered. "We need to get to the shuttle bay. Keep your head low and don't make a sound." The corridor was narrow, lit by flickering lights. Pipes ran along the walls, humming with energy. Lyra glanced at the raider guards patrolling ahead, noting their patterns. She had learned from observation that the taller ones were slower, while the smaller ones had sharp reflexes but moved in predictable paths. Elias paused at a corner, pressing his hand to a metal panel. Jonas's drones had already created a temporary shield disruption, but it wouldn't last long. "We have maybe 3 minutes before their systems start to recover," he whispered. Mara is ready outside. We move fast or we get trapped. Lyra nodded. She had never felt so tense and so alive at the same time. I can do it, she said quietly, more to herself than to Elias. As they moved forward, a guard suddenly turned the corner ahead of them. Elias froze, signaling for Lyra to stay low. The guard stopped, sniffing the air, scanning for intruders. Elias held his breath, knowing any sudden move could give them away. After a tense moment, the guard shrugged and continued down the corridor. Lyra exhaled softly. You're very brave, Elias whispered, giving her a small smile. Bravery doesn't mean not being scared. It means acting even when you are. They reached a larger chamber where the raiders kept their prisoners. Energy barriers hummed across the room, trapping several individuals, but Lyra's cell was isolated. The raider responsible for her guard was distracted by the system errors created by Jonas's drones. Elias pulled out a small device from his belt, a portable shield disruptor. With careful hands, he attached it to the barrier and pressed a button. A soft hum filled the air, and the barrier flickered, and then disappeared. Quick, Elias said. We don't have much time. Lyra stepped forward, feeling the barrier disappear. She had been confined here for hours, maybe more. Her eyes took in the room quickly, memorizing escape routes, guard positions, and potential hazards. Elias moved first, clearing the path, then held out his hand for her. Ready? He asked. Yes, she said, gripping his hand tightly. Together they moved toward the exit, but as they reached the door, alarms blared loudly. The raiders had noticed the barrier disruption. Red lights bathed the hallway and mechanical voices shouted in harsh, guttural tones. They know, Lyra whispered. Elias didn't reply. He sprinted down the corridor, dragging Lyra along. Behind them, raiders came rushing, weapons raised. Their steps pounded the metal floor, echoing through the fortress. Go left, Elias shouted, leading her through a maintenance hatch. They slid through tight spaces, narrowly avoiding the guards. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest, but she moved quickly, trusting the human who had saved her. They reached the shuttle bay. Outside, Mara's small pilot ship hovered silently, blending into the shadows. Elias tapped into the bay's controls, overriding the locks. The doors slid open with a hiss. Go, he shouted. Lyra ran, and Elias followed, covering her as they entered the shuttle. He keyed the engines, and the shuttle lifted off just as the raiders burst into the bay. Blaster fire streaked past the metal walls, sparks flying as shots hit the shuttle's hull. Mara guided the human ship from above, firing calculated shots to distract the raiders. The larger ship loomed in the distance, but Elias had a plan. He piloted the shuttle through a narrow asteroid field, weaving between jagged rocks that the raiders' larger ships couldn't follow easily. Lyra clung to her seat, eyes wide, but she felt safe with Elias. You're incredible, she said, her voice trembling with excitement and fear. Elias smiled, though his focus remained sharp. Humans have their ways, he said. Sometimes thinking fast, moving fast, and staying calm is enough. The raiders were not giving up. Small ships pursued them, weapons blazing. Elias guided the shuttle with precision, using the natural obstacles of the asteroid field to his advantage. Every turn and twist was calculated, yet risky. Lyra gripped the seat, learning quickly that courage wasn't about not being afraid. It was about trusting yourself and those who protect you. Finally, they reached open space, away from the asteroid field. Mara coordinated with Elias, forming a defensive formation that allowed them to outrun the raiders. The larger raider ships were slowed by the field, unable to match the shuttle's nimble maneuvers. Lyra looked at Elias, her eyes shining. We're going to make it, she said, a mixture of hope and disbelief in her voice. Yes, Elias said, and when we do, you'll be safe. I promise. As they increased distance, the shuttle finally slipped past the raiders' sensors. The alarms on the raider fortress returned to normal, but it was too late. The humans had outsmarted them, proving once again that cleverness and courage could overcome even the most advanced technology. In the safety of space, Lyra finally allowed herself to breathe. She looked at Elias and whispered, Thank you. For saving me. Elias nodded. It's not just me. Humans work together. Courage, planning, and teamwork. Those are what save lives. For the first time since the abduction, Lyra felt hope. She realized that humans, though not as technologically advanced as the Raiders, had something just as powerful: the ability to act with heart, bravery, and intelligence in ways that others could not predict. Meanwhile, the Raiders regrouped, their leaders furious. How could a human do this? One shouted. We are the strongest, the cleverest. How did they outsmart us? But Elias and his crew were already far ahead, carrying Lyra back toward Letheria. The small human ship moved like a shadow through the star systems, guided not by brute force, but by strategy, courage, and determination. During the flight, Elias spoke with Lyra. You were very brave, he said. Even when scared, you stayed focused. That's what helps in dangerous situations. Lyra smiled. I had a good teacher. Elias laughed softly. And you will be an even better one someday. Never forget how strong you can be. Far away, Queen Zira waited in the palace, unaware of the human hero already changing the fate of her family. She paced the balcony, her mind racing with worry. Every second felt like an eternity, yet deep inside, she trusted that Lyra's spirit could not be broken. As the human ship approached Letheria, the twin moons glowed in the distance, shining like beacons. Elias' crew prepared for re-entry, checking systems and plotting a safe course. Lyra clutched the side of the shuttle, excitement and relief mingling in her heart. Almost home, Elias said. Almost safe. And for the first time since the abduction, Lyra believed it. In the dark vastness of space, humans had proven something remarkable once again. They were not always the strongest, the fastest, or the most technologically advanced. But when it came to courage, ingenuity, and heart, they could face the greatest dangers and prevail. The rescue was complete. But the story was far from over. Soon, Lyra would be reunited with her mother, and Queen Zira would meet the human who had crossed the galaxy to save her daughter. But for now, in the quiet hum of the shuttle, Lyra and Elias shared a moment of safety, hope, and understanding. A moment that would shape the destiny of both humans and aliens alike. The twin moons of Letheria glowed softly, unaware that a human had just rewritten the meaning of bravery in their skies. The small human ship glided through the upper layers of Letheria's atmosphere, its engines humming quietly. Below, the city stretched like a glittering jewel, illuminated by the soft glow of the twin moons. For hours, Princess Lyra had watched the familiar skyline approach, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement, relief, and fear. She had been through an ordeal she never imagined, yet now she was almost home. Captain Elias Ward sat at the controls, focused and steady. The mission was far from over. Delivering Lyra safely was one thing. Navigating alien airspace without drawing unnecessary attention was another. Humans were not always trusted by alien civilizations, and he knew that any misstep could create problems. But Elias had done this before, assessed risks, acted with care, and succeeded. Almost there, he murmured to himself. Stay calm. Stay sharp. Lyra leaned forward, her glowing eyes reflecting the city below. I can't wait to see. Mom, she whispered. I hope she's not too worried. Elias glanced at her, a small smile crossing his face. She's worried, but she'll be glad to see you, and you'll be glad to see her. As they approached the palace, the city's security systems activated. Drones hovered into position, scanning the skies for unidentified ships. Alien patrols moved along the floating walkways, their eyes searching for anything unusual. Elias guided the ship carefully, avoiding restricted zones and using subtle maneuvers to stay under radar. Finally, the ship touched down in the palace courtyard, its landing smooth and controlled. Guards rushed forward, alerted by the unexpected arrival, but they paused when Elias emerged first, followed by Lyra. The princess ran toward them, her small form glowing faintly in the moonlight. A figure appeared on the balcony above, the queen herself. Queen Zira had been waiting, her silver-tinged robe shimmering as she leaned forward. Her eyes widened when she saw Lyra, unharmed and safe, running toward her. "Lyra," Zira called, her voice both commanding and filled with emotion. The princess leaped into her mother's arms, shouting, "He saved me, Mom. He saved me." Her words carried across the courtyard, leaving no doubt about who had brought her back. Zira held Lyra tightly, tears forming in her eyes. Relief, joy, and gratitude mixed in her chest, overwhelming her usual composure. Slowly she looked up at Elias. Her eyes were sharp and cautious, measuring him, yet softened by the undeniable truth. This human had crossed the galaxy to save her daughter. "Are you the one who did this?" she asked, her voice a mixture of awe and wariness. Elias stepped forward, bowing slightly in respect, a gesture he hoped would convey honor in a culture unfamiliar with humans. "Yes, Your Majesty. I am Captain Elias Ward. Your daughter was in danger and I brought her back." The Queen studied him for a long moment, her mind racing. Humans were unpredictable, often underestimated by the galaxy's other civilizations. Yet this one had acted without greed, without threat, and without hesitation. He had faced a far superior enemy and succeeded where her own forces had failed. That required courage and something else: honor. "You risked your life for my daughter," Zira said, her voice firm but edged with emotion. "Why?" Elias met her gaze steadily. "Because it was the right thing to do. She needed help, and I could give it. That is enough reason." The Queen considered his words. They were simple, yet powerful. So many beings in the galaxy acted for profit, politics, or power. This human had acted purely out of compassion and duty. She had heard stories of human courage before, but she had never seen it firsthand. Now she understood. Lyra tugged at her other's robes. "Mom, he really saved me. He's so brave." Her small voice carried pride and gratitude, echoing through the courtyard. Zira looked down at her daughter, then back at Elias. The truth was undeniable. Without him, Lyra might never have returned. The Queen's mind shifted from caution to admiration, though she did not show it completely. "You are not like other humans I have heard about," she said. "You are remarkable." Elias nodded humbly. "I'm glad she is safe." The courtyard filled with palace staff and security personnel who had rushed to witness the return. Whispers ran through the crowd. Humans were known, but rarely seen performing acts of such courage. Many had expected them to be reckless, greedy, or violent. Yet here was proof that humans could be clever, brave, and morally guided. Zira gestured for Elias to rise. "You will be honored for this deed," she said. "Not only for saving my daughter, but for showing that humans are capable of true heroism." The princess pulled on her mother's hand, leading her toward the small human crew. "These are the people who helped me," Lyra exclaimed. "Mara, Jonas, Rena, they were all amazing." Zira's eyes swept over the crew, noting their calm composure and teamwork. She realized that humans, though smaller and less advanced, in technology had qualities that could change the galaxy: courage, ingenuity, and selflessness. "Humans think differently," she said softly, more to herself than to anyone else. "They do what others fear to attempt. They face danger with heart." Elias, sensing her appreciation, bowed again. "Your Majesty, I do not seek reward. I only wish to see the princess safe. That is my duty." The Queen studied him silently, her mind evaluating not only the deed but the character of the man. She saw honor, intelligence, and courage, a combination rare in any species. "Perhaps," she said, "there is more to humans than we have imagined." Meanwhile, Lyra continued chattering about the rescue, describing every moment in detail: the clever plan, the daring maneuvers, the frightening moments that became triumphs. Her eyes shone with admiration for Elias and his crew. "They were so smart, Mom. They knew exactly what to do. They never gave up." Zira listened, a soft smile forming. She realized something important. Her daughter had not only been saved, but had also witnessed the qualities of courage and morality that could inspire generations. Elias's actions were not just a rescue, they were a lesson in bravery and humanity. The palace staff gradually settled, some bowing to the humans in respect, others whispering among themselves. It was rare for outsiders, especially humans, to enter the palace. Even rarer for them to succeed where her own forces had struggled. Zaira knew she had to acknowledge this openly. "You have our thanks," she said formally. "And more than thanks. You have earned our respect." Elias shook his head lightly. "Respect is earned by action, not words. I am grateful only that the princess is safe." For a moment silence fell. Then Lyra spoke again, her small voice insistent. "Mom, can he stay a little while? Just so I can tell him everything about the festival and show him my favorite gardens." Zaira looked at her daughter and then back at the human captain. She saw the bond already forming between them, born of trust, bravery, and gratitude. For the first time, she considered the idea of humans not as outsiders or potential threats, but as allies, friends, and teachers. "Perhaps," she said slowly, "there is merit in learning from those who act with courage and honor." The palace. Gates opened to welcome Elias and his crew officially. Technicians and diplomats arrived, curious about the humans who had performed such an extraordinary feat. Conversations began to flow, questions about the mission, the humans' homeworld, and their ways. Elias answered with humility, careful not to boast, yet sharing the values that had guided him: courage, ingenuity, and moral responsibility. Lyra followed closely, holding onto Elias's hand occasionally, her glowing eyes wide with admiration. "I hope one day I can be as brave as you," she whispered. "You already are," Elias said softly. "You trusted yourself and stayed calm even in the face of fear. That is real bravery." Zaira watched this exchange, feeling a mixture of relief, pride, and curiosity. Perhaps this human, and humans in general, were more than the galaxy had ever expected. Perhaps they could be allies in ways no one had imagined. The twin moons of Letheria shone above the palace, their light reflecting off the walls and casting long, soft shadows. A child was reunited with her mother. A queen had met a human who had demonstrated courage, honor, and cleverness beyond expectation, and somewhere in the hearts of those present a new understanding was forming. Humans, though small and seemingly ordinary, had a power that could change the course of events across the galaxy. For now, the palace was calm. Lyra was safe. Elias and his crew were welcomed and honored. But the memory of this day, the story of courage and ingenuity, would ripple far beyond Letheria. It was a reminder that sometimes heroes come from the most unexpected places, and that courage, intelligence, and heart could overcome even the greatest dangers. Queen Zaira stood beside her daughter, looking at Elias with a new respect. "You have shown us something valuable," she said quietly, "and perhaps, through your actions, a path for future understanding between our people." Elias nodded humbly. "That is all I could hope for, Your Majesty." The palace of Letheria was alive with preparation. Word had spread quickly through the city. The human who had saved the princess would be honored. Citizens lined the streets, curious and excited, some whispering among themselves about the bravery of beings from another world. For humans, such recognition from an alien civilization was rare, and for Letherians, it was unprecedented. Captain Elias Ward walked beside Princess Lyra, who held his hand tightly. Her glowing eyes sparkled with excitement, and she kept chattering about everything that had happened since the rescue. Elias smiled, listening patiently. For the first time in days, he felt a sense of calm. Their mission was nearly complete, yet he remained alert. After all, in a galaxy filled with unpredictability, caution was always wise. Queen Zaira appeared, on the grand balcony overlooking the courtyard, her silver robes catching the soft light of the twin moons. Her expression was composed, but beneath it lay gratitude, pride, and curiosity. She looked at Elias and saw not just a human, but someone who had demonstrated qualities rare even among her own people: courage, cleverness, and unwavering moral integrity. "People of Litheria," she began, her voice resonating across the plaza. "Today we honor a being who has crossed the stars to save one of our own. A human, Captain Elias Ward, has risked everything to return my daughter safely to me." The crowd erupted in cheers. Citizens from every district, from merchants to scholars, raised their voices in applause. The humans who had been skeptical, or even fearful, of outsiders now looked at Elias with wonder and respect. He had done something no technology, no weapon, and no negotiation could achieve. He had saved a life through courage, intelligence, and heart. Elias stepped forward humbly. "Your Majesty, citizens of Litheria, I did only what anyone should do when faced with someone in need. I am honored to have been able to help Princess Lyra and to see her safe again." Lyra tugged at his arm. "Mom, can we give him the biggest thank you hug ever?" she asked eagerly. Zira smiled, realizing her daughter had already formed a bond with the human who had saved her. "Very well," the queen said. Elias knelt slightly as Lyra wrapped her arms around him, her small hands glowing faintly as a sign of her excitement. Jonas, Mara, and Rena, Elias's crew, exchanged glances, proud and slightly amused at the child's enthusiasm. "Thank you, Lyra," Elias said softly. "I'm glad you're safe." The ceremony continued with Zira formally presenting Elias with a Medal of Honor, crafted from Litheria's luminescent crystals, symbolizing bravery and service to life itself. Elias accepted it with humility, understanding that while the medal was a symbol, the true reward was the lives saved and the respect earned. After the formalities, Zira invited Elias and his crew to the palace chambers. The queen wanted to discuss more than gratitude. She wanted to explore the possibility of alliances, cooperation, and cultural exchange between humans and Litherians. "Captain Ward," she began, once they were seated in the softly glowing council room, "your actions have shown us the value of humans, not just in strength but in morality, courage, and cleverness. We have underestimated your kind for too long." Elias nodded. "We humans have many flaws, Your Majesty, but we also have the ability to think differently, to adapt, and to act with heart. Those traits can make a difference, even in the face of great danger." Zira leaned forward, her fingers tapping lightly on the table. "Perhaps there is a future for humans and Litherians to learn from one another. Your courage has opened the door to trust, and trust can lead to cooperation." The discussion turned to practical matters. Elias proposed sharing human strategies for problem-solving, rapid response tactics, and even certain engineering techniques that could complement Litherian technology. In return, Litherians offered insights into advanced energy systems, diplomatic protocols across the galaxy, and cultural knowledge that humans had never encountered. "This exchange," Elias said, "can make both our peoples stronger, safer, and wiser. And perhaps one day it can prevent tragedies like the one we just faced." Zira nodded thoughtfully. She had always valued wisdom, strategy, and foresight. And now she saw that humans possessed those qualities in ways unique and surprisingly effective. "Very well, Captain. Let this mark the beginning of a new era for our peoples." Meanwhile, outside the palace, Lyra led her new human friends through the gardens. She showed them bioluminescent flowers, sparkling ponds, and secret paths only a curious child could discover. Elias smiled as she spoke, realizing that even amidst the grandeur of the palace and the importance of diplomacy, moments of simple joy were what made life meaningful. "Your gardens are amazing," Mara said, crouching to examine a glowing flower. "They are beautiful," Lyra replied proudly. "And now you get to see them too." Jonas and Rena laughed, following her along the winding paths. Even humans, who had traveled across galaxies, found wonder in this alien world. And in that wonder, they understood something vital. Bravery and friendship could bridge any distance or difference between species. Back in the council room, Zira finalized plans for formal alliances. Humans would be invited to establish diplomatic posts on Letheria, share knowledge, and train selected Letherians in human-inspired strategies. In return, Letherians would offer guidance on advanced technologies, defense systems, and interstellar relations. What had begun as a single act of heroism was now blossoming into a partnership that could change the galaxy. "Your bravery has inspired more than just my daughter," Zira said to Elias. "It has inspired an entire civilization to see beyond fear and prejudice, to recognize the value of courage and morality in all beings." Elias bowed respectfully. "Then the act itself was worth far more than I imagined. I am honored to have played a part." The palace gardens were quiet as the humans prepared to leave for the evening. Lyra hugged Elias tightly one more time. "Promise me you'll come back?" she asked, her voice soft. "I promise," Elias said, smiling. "There are still adventures ahead, and I'll be back when you need help, or just to see the gardens again." As Elias and his crew returned to their ship, Queen Zyra watched from the balcony. She realized that this human, and humans in general, were not just visitors from a distant star. They were beings capable of courage, honor, and selflessness. And in the vast, unpredictable galaxy, those qualities were as valuable as any technology or weapon. The twin moons shone brightly, casting gentle light over the city. Citizens whispered about the humans, marveling at their ingenuity and bravery. What had begun as a rescue mission had become a story of inspiration, showing that even the smallest acts of courage could ripple across civilizations. Elias's ship lifted smoothly into orbit, the human crew looking back at Letheria with a sense of accomplishment. They had faced danger, relied on courage and ingenuity, and succeeded. And in doing so, they had changed the way an entire civilization viewed humans. Back on the palace balcony, Zyra turned to her daughter. "Lyra," she said softly, "today you have seen something important. Humans are not just different. They are capable of great good. Courage and heart can make them heroes." Lyra nodded. "I know, Mom, and I'm glad he saved me. He's amazing." The Queen smiled, realizing that in saving her daughter, Elias had done more than protect a life. He had built bridges between worlds, inspired respect, and shown that humanity's greatest strengths lay not in power or technology, but in bravery, morality, and compassion. The night was quiet, peaceful, and full of promise. The city glowed under the twin moons, and somewhere across the stars, the humans who had risked everything looked forward to the adventures yet to come. In that moment, the galaxy seemed a little smaller, a little brighter, and full of hope. Captain Elias Ward, his crew, and the Letherians had begun a story that would be told for generations. A story of courage, honor, and the power of one human to inspire a civilization. The stars stretched endlessly, but humanity's light had reached Letheria, leaving a mark that would never be forgotten.